Welcome back to Stream of Bhakti, where we're going deeper and deeper into the Srimad Bhagavatam, the ancient Bhakti text, the practices of yoga, according to the Bhakti tradition. And I'm really happy to have Radhika Devi today to join us. We're trying to invite varieties of different yogis, Bhakti yogis, to come and help us dig deeper into the Bhagavatam.
Yogis and yoginis.
And yoginis. Yes. So I have a few words to say to introduce Radhika. I have a few scripted points that I'll start with. One, oops, I'm on the wrong thing here. Yeah, well, Radhika is quite highly educated, having a master's degree in English literature, and also has studied, with a focus on poetry, also has studied Sanskrit and Asian studies as well at UBC. And you've studied at UCLA.
Yes.
And also you teach in Vrindavan, at one institute in Vrindavan. You also written a number of books. Let's see here. Which of these books?
I'm sitting somewhere right here. Mostly poetry, but 2 or 3 are translations from Sanskrit.
Yes, I remember seeing some of your first books I saw. I remember them being Sanskrit translations of ancient texts, and that's quite a feat, right? Further Bhakti literature that's kind of like couched in Sanskrit.
Yes,
have to,
that is the point.
And so Radhika Devi has also been a long time practitioner of Bhakti Yoga.
45 years.
Yeah, 45 years. Originally coming from the Vancouver area, right?
Yes.
But then you spent a good chunk of your life in India.
Yeah, and a good chunk of my life in the U.S. I was in Berkeley and the U.S. 15 years. Yeah, but a lot of time India.
And so you've really been immersed in the whole culture, in the heartland, I must say, too, of Vrindavan. You spent many years in Vrindavan.
10 years in Radhakund.
Really?
Yes, 10 years in Radhakund.
Wow. And on the background, behind you, we only see, I think, one painting, but you are also quite an accomplished artist. There's a few more there.
That's what I do for a living. I'm a painter. Sumie, Japanese brush, one breath painting.
Nice. I have about 7 or so of your paintings on my wall here, which I like very much.
Yes.
So I'm really happy that we can do this today.
And this is my mood. This is the mood of I. Devi, feeding birds. they eat out of my hand.
Pigeon?
Yeah, pigeons, all kinds, and crows, all kinds of creatures. Yes, ducks.
Beautiful. So I'm really interested here because my particular interest in having this discussion with you is that I really admire the depth which you're able to analyze this text, the Bhagavatam, and through your deep understanding of the Sanskrit language, but also along with your lifetime of practice of bhakti. And I always find it enriching to discuss these topics with you from the Bhagavatam. And I think it's kind of what we need, because the Bhagavatam is a very ancient text. It's thousands of years old, and it's written in Sanskrit. So, of course, we have the translation and commentary by Prabhupada, which is our guiding us through this journey of the Bhagavatam. But even still, we need more insight to go deeper into these teachings. So I really thank you for joining us today, Radhika. And today we're going on to chapter 10. Last week we finished the very dramatic chapter of Bhishma Dev leaving his body and ascending. And now we're in the aftermath of chapter 10. This is the departure of Krishna for Dwarka. So shall we begin? I'll just chant just a couple of invocational mantras, and then we'll begin. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So this Bhagavatam, it opens up with this mantra, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we always like to chant that before entering into the Bhagavatam. And the other mantra I chanted was an acknowledgement of the lineage of Bhakti teachers and how they open our eyes, our darkened eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. And we also offer our respects to them before entering into this great work. So here we are, after Bhishma Dev has gone on. Now, so one thing that the experience for us, Radhika, in here has been that, we get into the Bhagavatam, and then there's going to be a scene is introduced. And in that scene, there's personalities. And in the course of going over that section, we were introduced to new people that we didn't know before. And we hear about their life or whatever. We can even get a little attached to them. And we hear about the struggle of the situation that they're in. And then somehow there's some closure. And then we kind of move on and to the next scene. And so there's this kind of rhythm in the Bhagavatam like that. Do you have anything to comment on?
Yes,
on
I
that?
do. It is pure theater. These are different scenes. So one scene opens and it leaves so many questions unanswered. Then the next scene comes and can make it more confusing, also explain something. It's pure theater. It is drama.
Mm-hmm.
So that is, we say Nartaka Atman. I am the Atman, or the actor playing also part and also watching it. I'm the audience.
Mm-hmm.
But we can also take part into it when we enter into the actual drama.
It's like being there.
Yeah, it's like being there. So that's very charming, very charming.
So we haven't really been, of course, the whole Bhagavatam is meant to guide us towards understanding about our relationship with, in particular, Krishna. The Bhagavatam is going to take us ultimately to that. And in fact, the whole Bhagavatam, so we open up in the first canto. We are dealing with a number of different personalities, and Krishna eventually appears. He first appears in the Bhagavatam in an interactive way with Arjuna when they're trying to deal with Ashvatthama. I believe so. That's the first time. And so now Krishna has been present. He's been there on the side of Bhishma Dev, but there hasn't really been much focus on him as a personality yet. Mm-hmm. And so now in the next few chapters, it's going to be really zeroing in on Krishna. And then we're not really going to see him directly in this way much until much later in the Bhagavatam.
Exactly.
Can you give us some insight on that?
Charming. This is an introduction to entice you, to awaken your curiosity, but doesn't give too much. Then the 10th canto, everything is explained with 100 footnotes. That's the point. So it's just to awaken your desire to hear more, your curiosity.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It's a good chunk. There's a couple chapters here, but it's nothing compared to the 10th canto, right?
Exactly.
I mean, really, yeah. So, but before so this chapter will largely focus on Krishna, but there is some kind of, I guess, in a play, right? There has to be some natural, what would you call that? The storyline.
Yeah, there's the hero, the anti-hero, friends of the hero. All the tastes are there, especially friends of the hero, like his cousin. Yudhishthira.
So we're kind of transitioning towards focusing on Krishna, but before we do that, we're hearing about Yudhishthira. Exactly. What he does after Bhishma leaves, and Yudhishthira is now the king.
Exactly.
Right.
And Krishna plays a lower role. This is very charming. There's the king Yudhishthira, and Krishna is like a lesser person. Again, that is the charm. Krishna plays any role. Sometimes there's a ceremony and Krishna bathes everybody's feet. That is the Thakur, but he acts like he's the lowest, and yet he's the highest, because everything is reversed in the spiritual sky.
So why does he do that?
Why does he do that? To create charm. Like in Vaikuntha, he's God with 4 arms. It's not charming, but in Golok, he's God DOD with 2 arms. So that is the charm. I cannot relate to a 4-armed God. The embrace is 2-armed. The 2-armed Lord, Alinga.
So shall we just maybe we can go back and forth reading some of the texts?
Yeah, you go ahead.
Okay, so text 1. Shonaka Muni asked, so this is like a slight zoom out because of course there's layers in the Bhagavatam, right? Where the whole story of Bhishma Dev was being recounted by, or recounted to Shonaka Muni and all the other Munis. And now he's asking, after killing his enemies who desired to usurp his rightful inheritance, how did the greatest of all religious men, Maharaj Yudhisthira, assisted by his brothers, rule his subjects? Surely he could not freely enjoy his kingdom with unrestricted consciousness. So I have a quick question for you here. So one is that basically Shonaka's question is that, okay, now Yudhisthira goes back to rule the kingdom, but how could he really do it? Wasn't he a little disturbed?
How can he do it? Everybody has died, 33 million.
Yeah.
And that is the whole point. And you see, this leads up to the future pastime where those brothers are all going to the Himalayas, followed by a dog. So this is just, again, a foreshadowing of what is to come. In the meantime, we're dipping a little bit in, says he's quite happy, but take it with a grain of salt. Yes.
Okay, next text.
Yeah, the second verse says, Sutta Goswami said, Lord Krishna, who is the maintainer of the world, became pleased after reestablishing Maharaj Yudhisthira in his own kingdom and after restoring the Kuru dynasty, which had been exhausted by the bamboo fire of anger. So there's a reference to the Battle of Kurukshetra.
I wonder if this is the reference to that that bamboo, that kind of metal bamboo that was growing in the water.
Oh, well, that's also there. That's also indicated. Very much so.
A story for another time.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have to remember this is story within a story within a story. Like first the story was told on the bank of the Ganga. Now we are in the forest. First it is Shukadev speaking to Parikshit. Now it's Shaunaka speaking to Sutta.
Yes.
So it's told within, it's a story within a story within a story. That's the charm. And here again, we're sitting and story within a story on Marine Drive. Yeah.
How's that?
Drives on each side, Marine Way, Marine Drive.
So, sorry, I'm flipping my page here. So Yudhisthira, after being enlightened by what was spoken by Bhishma and Krishna, the infallible, engaged himself in matters of perfect knowledge because all his misgivings were eradicated. Thus he ruled over the earth and seas and was followed by his younger brothers. So it seems his misgivings were at least eradicated for the moment.
Actually, not even for the moment, permanently, but still he acts out the part as if there's confusion.
Okay.
Because he was already enlightened. Still, there's an aftermath, so to speak. Because look at what it says next verse. During the reign of Maharaj Yudhisthira, the clouds showered all the water that people needed, and the earth produced all the necessities of man in profusion. Due to its fatty milk bags and cheerful attitude, the cow used to moisten the grazing ground with milk. So there's paradise, or in Sanskrit, paradesha. Paradesha is Sanskrit and English paradise. Paradise. The cows are moistening the earth with the milk from their udder.
Yeah, which is a sign of happiness, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we won't. Maybe we won't focus on this too much, but in the commentary of this text, which goes on for almost 2 pages, page and a half, Prabhupada is talking about how this contrasts the state of the world today, and especially in terms of how the cows are treated.
Yes. Yeah. That's why many of us are vegans.
Mhm.
how the cows are treated. Even milk cows is atrocious.
But isn't it interesting how in the Vedic culture, I just quickly that that the health of society and basically the happiness of the population is somehow connected to the happiness of the cows.
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
mean, it seems kind of abstract because we don't live in an agricultural, civilization, perhaps.
Yeah, but of course, everybody lives in the country, first of all. So already
Yeah.
you're in nature. You're not in a cement city. So
Hmm.
naturally, it's agrarian. It's an agrarian culture. That
Yeah.
is the difference. So it's
Yeah. Yeah.
naturally land, the pleasure of being in nature, and nature nurturing you and you nurturing nature.
Did I read the last one,
Now
or did you
you
read
are
it?
reading now 5.
I read 5.
Yeah.
The rivers, oceans, hills, mountains, forests, creepers, and active drugs in every season paid their tax quota to the king in profusion.
Amazing.
So I guess that would be the healing types of drugs that are found in nature, right?
Exactly.
They were in abundance.
Yeah, and they paid their tax. What a metaphoric expression.
Yeah, yeah.
Just when Krishna walks in the forest with Balaram, Krishna says, "Hey, Balaram, look, all the trees are bowing down to you. The fruits are falling off the tree, rolling at your feet." That is reverence.
So then this takes it another step, because if we say that the happiness of, okay, there's a connection between happiness and well-being between humanity and the animals, but there's also a connection between the happiness of humanity and the wellness of the whole natural realm. Like,
Absolutely.
so all of this production, natural production that was going on, or the condition of the natural world, I think the point here is that he was such a good king, and the world was such a happy place that even the seasons and even nature itself responded.
Very good. The season is called Ritu. Ritu, the word rhythm comes from that. The rhythm of nature was so auspicious that it provided everything. The ebb and flow. Beautiful.
Uh-huh,
Ebb
uh-huh.
and flow. So retreating and giving, retreating and giving. Ritu. 6 seasons in India, in Shastra. You know the 6 seasons, not 4.
Yeah,
There's a wet season and a dewy season.
it's
6.
like that in India too, right?
Yeah, it's in India. That's of course. We here have only a wet season, as you know, only one season
Mhm.
in Vancouver.
Wet and dry. Okay, 6.
Because of the kings having no enemy, the living beings were not at any time disturbed by mental agonies, diseases, or excessive heat or cold. Beautiful.
Sri Hari, which is another name of Krishna, resided at Hastinapur for a few months to pacify his relatives and please his own sister Subhadra.
Afterwards, when the Lord asked permission to depart and the king gave it, the Lord offered his respects to Maharaj Yudhishthira by bowing down at his feet, and the king embraced him. After this, the Lord, being embraced by others and receiving their obeisances, got into his chariot.
So here is another instance of the charm you're talking about.
Yes, nothing but.
Krishna, although in fact, we don't even really, I guess we say avatar, but we say avatari, don't we?
Yeah, he's avatari. That
Can you
is, of
tell us the
course,
difference? What's the
now I'll
difference
tell
between?
you the difference. When you're looking at Jayadev's Das avatar, then Krishna is there. There's 10 avatars, including Krishna. But in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, we have ascertained and proved, quote unquote, that Krishna is actually the source of all avatars. So he's avatari. So he's not in the list of the 10 avatars. There's no Krishna, there's Balaram. Balaram, older brother, substitutes for Krishna. Sense.
So it's interesting because the all of the avatars, but especially Krishna, um, Krishna exhibits such personal charm, and that is, I don't know, is that one of the most striking features of Krishna's personality as compared to the avatars?
Absolutely, because this is how we can approach him. Like I said, when there's awe and reverence, I approach the king, but there's no charm. But when I'm talking to the king in the after party and we're having chai together, then it's a completely different milieu. So we're having intimacy. So Krishna allows intimacy. That is the point. That is the Godhead for us. The Hari invites intimacy. See, that's even a rhyme.
Which text was that? Okay, so that was text 8, right?
Yes.
9. So at that time, Subhadra, so here's a bunch of names.
Yes.
And throughout the course of the Bhagavatam, we'll get to know all these names, but we may not get to know them all right now. At that time, Subhadra, Draupadi, Kunti, Uttara, Gandhari, Dhritarashtra, Yuyutsu, Kripacharya, Nakula, Sahadev, Bhimasen, Domya, and Satyavati all nearly fainted because it was impossible for them to bear separation from Krishna.
Beautiful. Very heartbreaking. And it says, but they cannot cry because it's not apropos to cry when somebody leaves. That's what it says. It says, the intelligent who have understood the Supreme Lord in association with pure devotees and have become freed from bad materialistic association can never avoid hearing the glories of the Lord, even though they've heard them only once. How then could the Pandavas tolerate this separation? For they had been intimately connected with this person, seeing him face to face, touching him, conversing with him, and sleeping, sitting, and dining with him. This is a very important verse because in the Gita, Arjuna says, Krishna, now I understand you're the Supreme Lord, but I used to sit on the bed and joke with you. How could I have joked with you now that I understand that you have the opulence of the Supreme Ishvara, Parama, Krishna? You see? So he's bewildered. Again, charm. Then again, it comes down.
Yeah, I see what you mean also here about how it's also giving us a glimpse, because all of these very intimate moments that are being spoken about here with Krishna, there's not going to be a lot of elaboration on this.
No.
And it's not until really the 10th canto when we get into into what it means to be face to face, what it means to be conversing with him, and like how personal that is.
And again, your curiosity, because when you have a novel, if there's no curiosity, you will never read. So we could say that suspense. This adds suspense, and the suspense means tightness. The suspense allows you to continue. This is how Krishna cheats you. He cheats you. He becomes so interesting, you can't put the book down. And we hope this is true for our audience.
Okay, 13. Text 13. All their hearts were melting. All their hearts were melting for Krishna on the pot of attraction. What a line.
Wow.
All their hearts were melting for Krishna on the pot of attraction. They looked at him without blinking their eyes, and they moved hither and thither in perplexity.
This is so beautiful. Vitulous, it says vitulous. Vitulous means moving back and forth in a nervous manner. They don't even know whether they're going. In the deep attraction for that Lord. Melting, because when you have a pot and it's hot, then whatever substance you put in is going to melt.
But what's the Sanskrit there for the pot of attraction?
The pot of attraction, I'll see it. It's called well, it says actually, it's not really that it says the pot here. It says Sneha Sambada, the pot of attraction is called Sneha or attraction. So this is the word. This is the word. Yeah.
Wow. It's beautiful poetry.
Very nice. Yeah. Doesn't have the word pot per se, but pot has so many different names.
Mm-hmm.
But look at the next one. It says, the female relatives whose eyes were flooded with tears out of anxiety for Krishna came out of the palace. They could stop their tears only with great difficulty. They feared that tears would cause misfortune at the time of departure. And it does. It's not apropos to be crying at that time.
Mm.
Very beautiful.
Mm-hmm. High emotion here.
Yes.
So I
And
guess
it's repressed. It's repressed again, adding suspense. The emotion is suppressed, and again, tension is added to our story.
I mean, just to fill it out a little bit more, like, because the story, because weeks go by and we may not piece the whole storyline together, but Krishna, he doesn't live in Hastinapur, which is where all of this has been going on.
And Hastinapur means the place of the elephants, Hasti, city of elephants.
So he was there specifically for the purposes that we've been reading about. He was there for the Pandavas, for Arjuna and Yudhisthira. He was there to meet with Bhishma. But after Bhishma, departs, and then Yudhisthira's in place as the king. So now, after so long, Krishna has been there. Now he's leaving, and so they just can't conceive of their place of residence without him. Now they can't think of being separated from him.
Mm.
So while Krishna was departing from the palace of Hastinapur, different types of drums like the mridanga, dola, nagra, dunduri, and dundubi, and flutes of different types, the veena, gomukha, and beri, all sounded together to show him honor.
Beautiful.
The only one I know there is, what's that? There's an orchestra. Yeah, the only one I know is the mridanga.
That's good.
And the flute.
But, yes, it's beautiful. But the flute, Krishna's flute, the Venu.
Yes.
Venu, but not Venu Gopal, but Venu. Beautiful. Then it says, out of loving desire to see the Lord, the royal ladies of the Kurus got up on top of the palace, and smiling with affection and shyness, they showered flowers upon the Lord. That's typical of Indian society, because the roofs of the houses are flat, not like here. Here we have snow and water, but they're flat, so everybody goes to the roof, and then you can see very high. Actually, in India, where I used to live and have a little house, on top of the house, we have what we call the gun room. So the gun room is there because you can see who should be, and that's on the flat roof. Yeah, very beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice that you have, because of having so much. See, a lot of the description here that we're going to read, and throughout the whole Bhagavatam, it's describing a culture that there's a culture that most of the world doesn't understand anymore, or certainly doesn't experience anymore. And so, but even in India to some degree, I think, but in some of the places where we could say progress has been less rapid in terms of material progress, and also where bhakti has been preserved, there's still a really kind of strong sense of this kind of culture there, would you say? After
absolutely. The village, I spent so many years in the village, back and forth, and it's like hundreds of years ago. And even the interaction with family members, very, very, very charming, and also sometimes a little bit alerting. You think, oh my God, am I supposed to do this now? You see, there's certain patterns, how to, let's say, how to act with your brother-in-law, how your husband acts with younger sister-in-law, all these patterns are in place. Also, the concept of parda. Parda means curtain. So the women are inside the house, the men are at the gate with the hookah, with smoking the hookah. And the women are in the house. And the servants are in between protecting the house. And the only person who's allowed to come in is the husband if he wants. But it's complete separation between men and women for charm. We used to have many dance parties, only the ladies can go. And we're dancing and joking. And the men are smoking the hookah at the gate.
Yeah. So I like to, I like when conversations of the culture come up, because I mean, for me, it was especially important to, like, in order to apply and understand and appreciate Bhakti. I felt a really important part of the process for me was separating the, you could say the supportive culture,
Yes,
with the actual teaching themselves, because the teachings, even in the Bhagavatam, they're presented within a culture that's intact.
exactly.
But if we were to try to, just to apply the same cultural type of things that are in the Bhagavatam in inappropriately, or, like, in other words, not like some of the things are timeless in the Bhagavatam, and some of them are not.
Exactly. And just like Prabhupada he tried to establish a culture in the West by grafting a new branch, but it did not exactly work. He had different programs and then he would abandon them because the West has a completely different concept. So not everything would fly, like Gurukula. The school in India, that may be one thing, but to establish that in the West is not always apropos or easy. So, and we should not be attached to that. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says we should be a little bit modern and postmodern, even.
Yeah.
What is like I've used the word apropos, not what is not apropos.
I think that's especially important for keeping that in mind while appreciating the cultural, the antiquity that's going on here
Exactly.
in the Bhagavatam, and how it's exactly how if we can just allow ourselves to enter it, like almost like as a history, you could say, then we can understand, relate to, and experience the sweetness and the charm that you've been pointing us to.
Yes.
But not if that won't happen if, when we come in contact with some of the cultural things in the Bhagavatam, we start thinking, well, this doesn't sound like called the culture I want to live in, like, or it certainly is not practical in the world that I'm living in. But if we can suspend those types of things and just allow ourselves to enter into the culture as it was at that time.
Exactly. Just like the concept of monogamy. This in Indian culture, the concept of monogamy is very rare. And even to this day in the village, actually polygamy is practiced. You see what I mean? Many people don't even realize how prolific these things are. So we should be very careful that we don't try and institute certain things that are apropos for this time or that were good in the previous time. Don't become fanatical about this. If Krishna did it, doesn't mean we should be doing it. Or even if it was done 200 or 300 years ago, that we should do it per se. Everything should be time, place, and circumstance. Patra, but Kala Patra Desh, like our verse this morning was on Kala Patra Desh by Jagovinda. Very apropos.
We had a similar experience when we first started reading, because the Bhagavatam opens up with, it opens up with the rishis at Naimisharanya, and then we start hearing about Vyasadeva and Narada Muni, and then the whole life of Narada Muni. So for quite a while at the beginning of the Bhagavatam, it's pretty chill. It's pretty relaxed. We've got some very peaceful personality types who are very renounced and living in very serene environments. And then all of a sudden we jump into this pastime of Ashvatthama hurling a Brahmastra at Arjuna, right? And so look at so then, in order to I felt what we had to do at that time was we had to embrace what it meant to be a warrior at that time, and accept their values
exactly
as if we were in that time, so we could see how the courage and the qualities of that person was actually being expressed through a culture that was very foreign. The culture of warriors. We don't know that, right?
Exactly. And that's why Mahaprabhu is not a warrior. His weapon is not a sword. His weapon is the Maha Mantra.
Right.
This is why we are followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and it's only ahimsa and peace. I would have never joined this movement if it wasn't ahimsa.
Yeah. That's a good segue for. We put a bookmark there because we haven't really talked much about Chaitanya and the. But we'll come back to that. But you're right. Our current modern day setting of bhakti does not involve the kshatriya qualities the way it did during the time of the Bhagavatam.
And neither do we have the rishis, because there's four sectors of society, but the rishi is a part again. When King Vena came and he ruled the place and made a mess, nobody could dethrone him, not even the brahmanas, but the rishis who lived in the hill, simply by their thought pattern, removed him. So how can we do this? I would like to remove so many people, but my thought pattern doesn't go there.
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
Even though I have the appellation Rishika for some reason. Yes.
I'm glad we had that little tangent there, because that I think is really going to be necessary to keep in mind as we, for the next few chapters, hear about Krishna, because there's going to be a lot of cultural background and things that are packed in here, like how the people are interacting, and we need to kind of just enter into that as if we're there at that time.
Now listen to the next verse.
Yes, let's do it.
Talks about the most innocent item. How about an umbrella? So let's read it. At that time, Arjuna, the great warrior and conqueror of sleep, who is the intimate friend of the most beloved Lord, took up an umbrella which had a handle of jewels and was embroidered with lace and pearls. What do you think of this for a contrast?
Well, there's a couple of contrasts there. Yeah, first of all, it's totally switching gears, because now there's Arjuna, right? But the other thing, which is I find culturally interesting, is that here's Arjuna. We've already heard about how powerful he is, right? And so we this has already been established. Now here's Arjuna all of a sudden appearing amidst this description, the great warrior, conqueror of sleep, who's the intimate friend. What's he about to do? It's like sitting on the edge of my seat. What does he do? You think he's going to haul out his Gandiva or something, right?
Talk about pearls and lace. Some old lady from the Victorian era has those items.
Right. There's no big weapon he's whipping out. He's whipping out, of all things, an umbrella. So what's that all about?
That's it.
It's decorative, right? But it's also to protect from the sun.
It's also ceremonial. It's ceremonial and decorative. Both these items, but the king has to be protected, or he has to protect Krishna from the sun or the rain, because an umbrella is as much to protect from sun, especially in Asia, as from rain. You have to remember that. Very
Got to get out of my Vancouver world here.
Yes. Yeah. Then look what happened.
Uddhava.
No, Uddhava. Yeah, Uddhava.
Uddhava.
Yeah, Uddhava. Yeah.
Uddhava and Satyaki began to fan Krishna with decorated fans. And Krishna, as the master of Madhu, seated on scattered flowers, commanded them along the road. Master of Madhu.
Madhu, the demon. Madhu, very interesting. This word Madhu means sweet. So he kills that sweet demon, Madhu. That's why Krishna is called, what is it? Madhusudana. Madhusudana. Very contrary terms. Beautiful. Then look what happened. It says, it was being heard here and there that the benediction being paid to Krishna were neither befitting nor unbefitting, because they were all for the Absolute, who is now playing the part of a human being. That's one of the best verses we read today.
Can you unpack that for us a bit?
Yes, because he acts like a human being under an umbrella with lace and pearls, but he is the supreme cognitive principle. Jiva Goswami calls Krishna the supreme cognitive principle of which we are all part and parcel. We are cognitive principles. And yet he walks under a little umbrella. So this is the absolute who plays the part of a human being. Again, we're back to the drama. This is all drama. And we have to see it exactly as that and understand who you are as an audience. The more you understand who you are, like we say, Koham, who am I? And Soham, I'm with him. Koham Soham. So to the degree we understand who I am vis-a-vis that cognitive principle, we can enter into that pastime, either aesthetically or factually.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on the supreme cognitive principle?
Yes, that is. This is explained by Jiva Goswami in the Tat Sandarbha or Sat Sandarbha, six books outlining who is Krishna and how is it that we 500 years ago have taken upon ourselves to replace Vishnu with Krishna. That was not easy. So Jiva Goswami is the main one holding forth. So it says in the early part of Bhagavan, Krishna's to Bhagavan Swayam. So on that very statement, this whole argument is hanging. So who is that Krishna? If I just think, oh, this gentleman in a yellow dhoti, that doesn't work. So many persons wear yellow dhoti. If I think the one with the flute, it doesn't work. All Krishna's friends is thousands of flute players. And yet he is the supreme playing that flute because he is the absolute cognitive principle. Cognitive, that English word comes from cognitive, gyan, knowledge, the cognitive principle. And that's ourselves. How come we can hear all this information? How come we can see? Because we are part and parcel of the cognitive principle. Nothing but it's the greatest mystery of that is the real yoga, to understand who am I really? Tattva, what does it say? Aham Brahmasmi. I'm part of Brahman. I'm Krishna Dasa Dasanu Das. So this is very, very astounding. And if we can understand that both intellectually, Gyan, and practically in terms, it's called Anubhav, to have the experience. In Vrindavan, I lectured under the rubric Anubhav Mandap. Mandap means a place to sit, and Anubhav means to have the experience. So unless we have the experience, not just the knowledge, we still don't know. It's still Krishna is an object that I'm speculating on, quote unquote.
So yeah, this is really interesting.
Yeah.
So what is the, because I want to kind of go a little bit more into this verse here.
Yes.
What is this connection between us being this cognizant part and parcel, but so how what is the connection with that and Krishna appearing as an avatar in what appears to be a human form?
Okay. First of all, you have to understand that we are generally within the modes of three natures. So I'm functioning under the ahankar, the false ego, the misconception. So unless I start functioning on the platform of aham, which is consciousness beyond waking, dreaming, and deep sleep, I cannot understand who is Krishna. So that absolute principle can actually only be understood on that highest level. So Krishna is playing the part of a human as if he's in the three-dimensional world. And so we can say, oh, yes, I understand how he feels. Now he's stealing, now he's crying, now he's laughing, now he's dancing. So he tracks us on the three-dimensional level and then pulls us into the four-dimensional level, the Turiya. And that is the point. So are we willing to be pulled there? Do we have Adau Shraddha? Do we have the faith to begin entering that path? Or are we just keeping saying, oh, it's a nice story. I like the catechism, but, I keep it at a distance. Now we got to come close. Very dangerous. Prabhupada says Krishna consciousness is very dangerous because Krishna means to attract. Krishi is actually a rake. Krishi means a farmer who uses a rake for the field. This is a rake. So Krishna is attracting us like a plow, actually what his brother demonstrates. Krishna is Krishi. attracting. The force, like they say in New Age, the force. And sometimes we don't like it, but it's exactly who he is. It's the force.
Mm-hmm.
Force.
I really like that, how we do become attracted while experiencing a three-dimensional world, and
Yeah.
how we get drawn into another dimension through becoming attracted to the experiences that we have connected with Krishna in the three-dimensional realm, draws us deeper and deeper into the further dimensions of reality, and eventually out of just a three-dimensional understanding of the world, right?
And then what you do, there's a Taoist phrase. I use the Taoist phrase, turning the light around. Then you turn the light around 180 degrees turn, not 90, because you're still on the wrong place. 180 degrees on a completely different platform, which is transcendence. So two pastimes, the temporary on this level and the eternal, the Niksha and the Naimitika. So we're on the temporal, and Krishna teaches us how to play. And then we have enough faith, Adau then we can be lifted up to that and actually play. That's why it says in the next lifetime we want to be gopis. You learn to be a gopi. You're practicing. It's like going to college, and you act as if you're a professor, and then after you get your PhD, then you can become after your doctorate, then you can also.
Well,
Very clever, very clever.
One of the things that has been very helpful for me in my life has been an understanding about how, like, that this place, this world, this experience that I'm living it is very much, I don't know, I guess we could say like a training ground, but I'm meant to learn things in this life. And if I learn the lessons that I'm supposed to learn in this life, then more opportunities await.
Exactly.
So this life is that opportunity to kind of like learn as much as I can about my spiritual nature and my relationship with Krishna, with the divine. And when I do that, like if I see my life in that way, then I can also start seeing my next life in a certain way.
Exactly. And
which is
exactly, it's vis-a-vis the other. Like you're training as a counselor or whatever, it's vis-a-vis the other. So we have empathy for the situation of others. So Krishna says, okay, you like my statue in the temple, that's not bad. But if you can see others, you see me and others, that's the highest, no higher.
Right.
Right. The final is to see everyone is enlightened. So that's actually where we're going towards. We want to see everyone is enlightened.
Okay, let's talk about that for a little bit. I want to like that point that you just made, which is that, okay, we may okay, you made 2 points there. One that was one previously that was maybe a little too esoteric for the moment, which is about how we want to eventually graduate to become a gopi.
Yes,
and this will be something that we will discuss, because it
that's
eventually.
A side note.
Yeah. Well, we're going to get the 10th canto is going to elaborate quite a bit on this phenomena, but before that, a bunch of other things have to happen, right? It's not that all of a sudden, I'm in a kirtan, all of a sudden,
it's
bam.
From grade 1 to PhD, okay? Yeah. I just kind of jumped it up.
Yeah. So one of the really important things that elements of transformation that we experience in Bhakti is, I think what you just pinpointed, is that how we start to appreciate that every single living entity is a spiritual being.
Exactly. It's part of the cognitive principle.
Right.
And you might remember this in addition, I will tell you this. Purnamada Purnamidam. Everything is full. Even when something is taken away, that is full, what is taken away. So we are like taken away from the full, and we are completely full. That we often forget. We are completely full.
Oh, full, like Full?
Yeah, Full. Yes.
Complete.
Not a fool. We are also no, we are complete and full. And that is the great, we cannot understand it, is achintya. Because we don't act on that level, so it's achintya, beta, beta. So that is so important.
And then if we were able to actually get to that point where we see the spiritual potential, the spiritual reality
Yeah,
with every single person that we meet,
exactly.
it
And
has
then
a real impact.
exactly. And it's
Mm.
called, I use that phrase, it's called acting for Krishna. So there's a very famous book. This professor went to Vrindavan and did how we act for Krishna. We act like we're part of Krishna's retinue. We offer flowers. We do all of these things. So we start acting for Krishna now by treating everyone as if they are enlightened, not as some. So we have so much respect, except those who are envious, we ignore them. But everyone else, we offer pranam.
Mm.
And not just to ourselves, people outside. And it really works because everybody, Prabhupada says, is actually enlightened. They just have forgotten it. You've never been in a tiger infested jungle. You think you have, but it's not true. That is the point. I
Yeah,
don't see any tigers. Do you see tigers?
you know what? I would really like to, because we're running out of time here, but
Yes.
this point is something that's I think it's really valuable. If you can maybe elaborate on that a little bit more. This point about how everyone's enlightened, but we've forgotten. Or in other words,
The main point.
Yeah. Can you unpack that one a bit?
Well, it is like this. Well, I can unpack it in the sense that right now we are dreaming. I'm in swapna, and then I wake up. I'm not worried about my dream. I'm not analyzing it. I'm awake. So the dream is forgotten. So as soon as we become enlightened, and it says everywhere in the scripture, your previous lifetime is of no consequence. You don't even talk about it. It doesn't exist because it was like a dream. So it's wiped out. It's whited out. And this is actually a fact. And I can tell you how all of you and all of ourselves can experience. You can experience when, let's say, you do your japa and you have one moment when you have perfect focus. It's like you're touching on the bottom of the turiya, of the next consciousness. So if you only one moment of awakening in this lifetime, bodhi or bodha, you will achieve. But if
Okay,
you don't give the time, you will not achieve.
So I got a question for you.
Yes.
That if we are enlightened,
yes,
and we've forgotten,
yeah,
and we become enlightened in our current lifetime, like say we or whatever degree that we succeed in becoming aware of that knowledge that's in our heart.
Yeah, we achieve.
Okay, so then I'm experiencing an enlightened state, but I'm still existing in my present state. So I guess my point here is that when I hear you say that the past gets kind of like blanked out, how I'm translating that in my mind is you're referring to a state of mind, a state of consciousness.
I can answer your question very quickly.
Okay.
There's two types of samadhi. One samadhi that I'm entering to the state of enlightenment and I'm gone from this world, nimesha. And the other one's called unmesha. I'm opening the eyes. It's called opened eye samadhi. So you know exactly what is this world and you're acting like an ordinary human being. And that is the point. And personalities like, of course, Bhakti Vinod, they speak about it. Prabhupada, he refers to it, but he doesn't open it up. And this other scripture, closed eye samadhi and open eye samadhi. So then we practice open eye samadhi.
Yeah, we're aspiring for the open-eyed samadhi then.
Yeah, what is it?
We're aspiring for the open-eyed samadhi.
Yes, we are, because otherwise you can't preach. Then you're gone. And then Prabhupada also says, the one who has closed eye samadhi, he opens to the Madhyama platform, and then he starts preaching. Because in closed samadhi, you're not preaching, everybody's enlightened. But in the other samadhi, I think, oh, you still think you're suffering. I'm going to talk to you. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
You see?
So as As we go through I mean, again, we're talking about pretty high accomplishments in yoga, in bhakti yoga.
Yes.
But in the course of the practice of bhakti yoga, then the symptom of it is that basically our lives, our relationships, our activities, we start to go through them and live them with our eyes opened in a different way than they were before.
Exactly. So dukkha, sukha is overcome. Dukkha, unhappiness, and sukha. I'm not attached to sukha either. So dukkha and sukha, it says, sitoshna sukha dukkha agama payamanisa tam stitikshashva. Tolerate duality. So then in an enlightened state, you don't tolerate duality, you are above duality, but you play as if you are in duality. And Krishna does it all the time. Then he's hungry, then somebody steals his lunch, then he's thirsty, and somebody has to fan him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he plays the role.
That's a really fitting note, I think, to close on. We are certainly now Krishna's playing the role here in this chapter, and he's going to continue to do that. I think that we're going to need to have you back though, because
I would be very happy because I want to play all the roles of samadhi. So if you want me to open my eyes, we say Om Agyana, Timaram Dasha. Timaram means blind, and Agyan. So the guru opens the eyes with the torchlight of knowledge by removing ignorance with a very sharp scalpel. So be careful.
Of knowledge, right?
Of knowledge. And that is knowledge with a capital K.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Radhika. That was a really wonderful discussion, and we really went pretty deep there. You know, we did 20 texts from this chapter, and I think we did a pretty good dive. I'm really happy.
A very good addenda. The addenda was good. The footnotes.
Yes.
And you're a very, very excellent executioner because you elicited all these addendas from me, which is highly unusual. So thank you.
Thank you so much for the discussion. And so hopefully we'll see you next week.
Yes, Radhe Radhe.
Okay.